There's a strong argument that we can make that the Romans deserve credit for the creation of what we now call modern France, and more specifically, Julius Caesar, who throughout his conquest of Gaul helped connect a tribal patchwork of societies to a larger imperial system that we might recognize as the early beginnings of modern civilization as we know it. But before we jump into Caesar and his legions, we need to rewind the clock a little bit, way back to the beginning. Long before Rome, before there was Gaul, before there was even France, there were people here. And not just humans like you and me, but our earliest ancestors. The story of France doesn't begin in a city or with a king. It begins in the dirt with stone tools and fire pits. Archaeologists have uncovered signs of human-like activity in France dating back over 1 million years. We're talking about Homo erectus, or possibly even earlier hominids. Not quite us, but definitely part of our history. Some of the oldest known sites include, and I'm not going to try to pronounce them, all of these sites were scattered across central France and all over 1 million years old. These early humans didn't leave behind cities or writing. What they left was far simpler: stone tools, animal bones, and traces of fire. But it tells us that France has been inhabited longer than almost anywhere else in Europe. Fast forward to about 50,000 years ago, and we start seeing something different. Modern humans, also called Homo sapiens, we begin arriving. In a cave called Grotte Mandrin, sorry for the pronunciation, in southern France, archaeologists found a set of human teeth that changed the whole story. They belonged to someone from a culture called the Neronian, making it the oldest known presence of our species in Western Europe. From there, France became a hotspot for Upper Paleolithic culture. We get the Algonquians, the Gravatians, and the Magdalenians. All of these were early hunter-gatherers who painted cave walls and carved figurines out of ivory. Ever seen those small sculptures of exaggerated female forms? Those are the Venus figurines, and some of the oldest ever come from this very region. Before there were Gauls or Romans or Franks, there was already a rich, complex human presence in the land that we now call France. The Romans didn't create civilization here from scratch, but they did, in a way, mold what came next. By the time Rome was a rising superpower, the land we now call France was known to the Romans as Gallia, also known as Gaul. But Gaul wasn't one unified country. It was a vast region filled with dozens of independent Celtic tribes, each with its own territory, custom, alliances, and rivalries. These tribes had names that sound almost mythic today. The Udui, who often aligned with Rome, the Urvarni, who would later lead resistance against Roman conquests, the Belgae in the north, and the Sequani, the Uberines, and many more. Some were powerful and well organized, others more rural and loosely structured. What connected them all was their Celtic culture, rich in oral tradition, polytheistic religion, and warrior values. Druids served as religious leaders and keepers of knowledge, while tribal chiefs ruled from fortified hilltop towns called Oppida, however you pronounce it. These weren't primitive people. Many tribes minted their own coins, traded with the Mediterranean world, and built complex settlements. But there was one fatal weakness: division. While they shared cultural roots, the tribes of Gaul were constantly at war with each other. There was no central leadership, no unifying force to bring them together. This lack of unity made them vulnerable, and Rome noticed. In 58 BC, Julius Caesar was at a crossroads in his political career. Fresh off his term as consul, he needed military success to boost his status and pay off his enormous debts. Luckily for him, Gaul was in absolute chaos. The Helvetii, a migrating Gaelic tribe from modern-day Switzerland, were attempting to move west into the territory of Roman allies. Caesar, he saw this as a perfect excuse to intervene. But this wasn't just a mission to help an ally. This was the start of an ambitious plan to conquer all of Gaul. What followed was one of the most brutal and effective military campaigns in Roman history, if not the world, the Gallic Wars. Over the next 8 years, Caesar marched tens of thousands of Roman soldiers across rivers, over mountains, and through dense forest. He besieged cities, crushed rebellions, and fought battle after battle against fierce tribal coalitions. Caesar's most famous opponent was Vercingetorix, a charismatic young chieftain of the Arverni tribe who united many Gallic tribes under one banner. Their final showdown came at the Battle of Alesia in 52 BC, a masterclass in Roman siege warfare. Caesar surrounded the Gallic stronghold with a double wall, one facing in and one facing out to repel the reinforcements. After weeks of starvation and relentless fighting, the Gauls surrendered. Vercingetorix laid down his arms at Caesar's feet, a powerful image that became symbolic of Gaul's submission. But the cost of conquest was staggering. By Caesar's own estimate, likely exaggerated, over 1 million Gauls were killed, another million were enslaved, and 800 cities destroyed. Gaul had been absolutely crushed, but also, you could say, transformed. This conquest wasn't just about land, it was about control, culture, and legacy. Caesar didn't just defeat Gaul, he absolutely rewrote it and its future. And that transformation would echo through history all the way to modern France. Conquering Gaul was just one step. What came next was a transformation so deep, so lasting, that its traces are still everywhere in modern France. In the roads, the languages, the cities, and even the law. After the Gallic Wars ended, the Romans didn't just pull out their legions and leave. They stayed, they built, they governed, and they became the process of what historians call Romanization, turning a newly conquered people into Romans. First came the infrastructure. Massive road networks like the Via Agrippa, connecting the region from Lyon outward, Roman-styled cities, complete with forums, temples, baths, and amphitheaters, bridges, aqueducts, and administrative centers, some of which still stand today. Then came the language. Latin was introduced as the language of administration, trade, and law. Over time, it blended with the local Celtic dialects and evolved, eventually forming Old French, and later Modern French, with lots of other admixture. There was also a slow but steady shift in identity. The local Gallic elite were offered a deal: adopt Roman customs, swear loyalty, and in return, get privileges, maybe even citizenship. Many took this offer. They started dressing Roman, speaking Latin, worshiping Roman gods, and building Roman homes. But this wasn't always forced. Roman culture was aspirational. It offered status, wealth, and a connection to the broader Mediterranean world. Cities like Lugdunum, modern-day Lyon, Nemesis, Nimes maybe, Massalia, Marseille, became the Roman hubs. Over generations, the memory of independent Gallic tribes faded. What remained was a new hybrid, not purely Roman, not purely Gallic, but something in between. And that blend would form the cultural bedrock of what would one day become France. So while the conquest was violent and bloody, the aftermath was kind of a rebirth, not into freedom, but into something Rome called civitas, civilization.